Hello everyone, and welcome to Podium HD. I'm John Ardelli, and today I'm at the Member 2 Trade and Convention Centre for an emergency meeting of the Nova Scotia Legislative Committee concerning the closure of the Veterans Affairs offices.
The fact remains, the offices are closing or have already closed. All know this is an emergency meeting to listen to the concerns that the veterans have.
If you see what's happening right now, they're closing the offices down. They are now reported as farming our documents out to an American company, which is in Canada. I suspect that maybe what they might eventually do is close down all the offices, right? And say Service Canada is your center, and your documents will be held by these fellows, sort of thing. Now that's a possibility. One of my colleagues said to Mr. Fantino, he said, "Can you guarantee me right now that there'll be no more conflicts and no war?" He said, "Because if you can, I'll go wrong with you and close down all these offices if you so wish. But you have to guarantee me that." Of course, Mr. Fantino can't do that. Don't want the man to move because we don't know what's going to happen next and what we'll be called to do. Now, that's been the standard. They say no. No and go. They keep saying no long enough, you'll go. And that's what's been happening, and it's terrible. I want to start by telling you a story about a dear friend of mine from Oshawa, Ontario. He was wounded in Cyprus and had a bullet lodged in his chest. When he went to Veterans Affairs to get something done about it, on the first review they said no. That's the old no and go thing. However, with him, one no was too much. They found him hanging outside his house. He committed suicide. I used to think that the government was making a mistake by closing these offices. I used to think that they just didn't understand how difficult it is for some of us to use the phone or the computer. Now I've come to a different conclusion. I believe now that this government knows exactly what it is doing. It is taking away the people who are trained to make sure we get all the services and benefits we are entitled to, so that veterans will stop using services and benefits. First, they make the services and benefits harder to access. Then they can say fewer veterans are using them, which they had done out west. And then they can use that to cut more and save money on the backs of the veterans. And here's where the mistake comes in. The real mistake was believing the veterans would just swallow our pride and walk away. To hell with that idea. Now, with the help of the workers who used to serve us and their union, we are united across the country. And believe me, when I say across the country, that's exactly what I mean. And we are fighting back. And you all have a very special responsibility to take a close look at what is happening to veterans across this province. Because the closure of the Sydney office doesn't just hurt Sydney veterans, it hurts all veterans in Nova Scotia. Just look at the numbers. In 2012, the Sydney office had 17 workers serving 4,200 veterans and their families. That's gone now. Now there's just one worker in the Service Canada office. In 2012, the Halifax office had 52 workers serving 14,629 clients. Now it has about 50 and is taking on the 4,200 clients from the Sydney office. Nova Scotia has 4 less case managers to deal with high-risk veterans. And those case managers are all in Halifax, more than 5 hours from Sydney. Nova Scotia vets used to have 22 client service agents to serve them. Now they have 18. That is why it is so hard to understand how the government can say that services won't change. Services have changed and will continue to change. Veterans in Nova Scotia and across the country deserve better. The friend I told you about, he deserves better. So I'm here today for him and for all of us. And I hope you'll do everything you can to help, not just here in Nova Scotia, but across Canada. Case management is very important to veterans to help prevent them from falling through the cracks. For instance, Mr. Fantino himself said, case management is a very real necessity for Canada veterans and their families. We cannot receive that in Service Canada with only one trained DVA worker. Case management is a service offered to veterans and their families with complex needs. Case managers are frontline personnel who build relationships with veterans and their families. They identify their needs and goals, develop the case plan with the veteran family to reach those goals, and then monitor and evaluate progress. People who have given their all and put their lives on the line for this country, and every Canadian living in it, are promised and deserve the desperately needed assistance and support they require to live a normal life. Out of absolute desperation, veterans have reached out to the Public Service Alliance of Canada for help in retaining these services which we currently have and are entitled to. In sheer desperation, we were trying to reach out and save fellow veterans through telling the Canadian public what is happening to their fathers, mothers, sisters, brothers, sisters, uncles, cousins, sons, and daughters who have given so much that we may live in a free country. They are being let down, shunned like a drop of bacteria, discarded like yesterday's trash by the government that deploys them into war zones and conflicts. The audacity of Mr. Fantino and his government is unfathomable. The decision to close these 9 veterans' offices that serve tens of thousands of veterans could be reversed with a word from the Prime Minister or the stroke of a pen. Yet the only voices heard are the echoes of desperate cries of our fallen colleagues who felt no help and departed this life. The devastated loved ones left behind are current veterans and their families, all crying out to our government for the help that was promised, the help they are entitled to. All cries are falling upon deaf ears. Why should we have to beg?
You alluded to a gap between what military veterans know they're entitled to and what they're actually entitled to, and the benefits of a caseworker being able to communicate the maximum of what services and what support you're entitled to. Can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit?
Like myself, I also have had a back injury as well as PSTD. I didn't know what my entitlement was. A wheelchair, building a ramp up to my house, getting me mobility, like a little one of them little, they're not race cars because they're not too fast. So, you know, I knew nothing about that. Stuff for my bathroom, you know, the handles so I can get in and out of the tub. I knew nothing about that. It was my case manager that told me I'm entitled to this and got it for me.
Mr. Clarke, now that the federal government has closed the Veterans Affairs offices, where are you and your fellow veterans going?
Well, I went over to the office just last week, but I knew I was going to be looked after because the person who was there used to be the manager in Sydney, so he's well informed. But I did ask him how long he was going to be there, and he couldn't give me an answer. He said maybe June or July, so then we wouldn't have him there, right? We'd have Service Canada personnel who were not trained to look after the veterans.
Nova Scotia is the only province that has a committee for Veterans Affairs as part of the makeup of the legislature of our province. And that's because here in Nova Scotia, there are a great deal of people that do indeed go into the military. It's a vocation that people take a great deal of pride in. And we take a great deal of pride in the fact that we have so many veterans here. What has taken place, in my opinion, is not right, it's not fair. But I was wondering if you could tell the people here on the committee, some who are not aware of what a visit to the office would entail.
First of all, with the Sydney office, we didn't have to call to make an appointment. We could just walk in. Walk in, announce ourselves, sit in a chair, and within 5 minutes somebody would be out there calling you in the office, sit down and find out what your problems are. and they would go to work on those problems immediately. Now, in relations to Service Canada, when I went in the other day, I didn't have a clue where to go, but there seemed to be a young fellow there in front of a table. So I figured, hey, he must be the guy to talk to. So I said, excuse me, I'm here looking for Veterans Affairs. And he said, Veterans Affairs? He said, that's over, or was over on George Street. And I said, yeah, I know it was over there, but apparently there's somebody here now. And he then said, yeah, oh yes. He said, there's a fellow around the corner there. From what I understand, that young lad, he could have gone on the computer or on his iPhone, whatever the hell that is, and ordered forms, but there's only certain forms he can order. He can't help you fill them out. There's no way he knows what's, the questions, the answers to the questions. At the office, you can see a nurse, you can see a doctor. You'll make an appointment for a shrink if you need it, right? Physiotherapy, they can send you to a physiotherapist. They can do all that stuff. They can do all that stuff at the office, right? Whereas the Service Canada, they're not trained. That was another thing that Mr. Fantino gave misinformation about. He started out, there would be 450 service points, then 500, and then 550, and now he's up to 600. And I asked him, do you have courses, training set up for these people who will be at the office? And that's when he left. He had no answer for that. And I can tell you, they don't. They don't have any training set up, no courses set up for these people. So what are they going to be able to do for us? Very, very little. Give you the paperwork and let you work it out yourself, So that's wrong. We can't have that. We have to have this one-on-one with Veterans Affairs people, the PSAC people who know what the hell they're doing.
The other thing I just want to clarify, there is one service representative in one of the Service Canada offices, is that correct?
That's correct.
Cape Breton.
Yes, that's correct.
Before, when the office was around, would there be people who would go to Shed Camp for a day?
Oh, yes.
Or not?
Yeah, we had 17 people in the office, and without looking at the paperwork, I don't remember how many were caseworkers. But yeah, they would travel, as a matter of fact, they were traveling right up to Halifax. They had some cases in Halifax that they had to look after. So yeah, they traveled from one end of Cape Breton to the other end of Cape Breton and beyond. But that is no more.
And is it your understanding that the person that is in the Service Canada office, that's the location? He or she will not be doing any travel?
No. How the hell can you travel, keep the office open? That's not the answer. They will not be able to, they'll not be able to give the service that we as veterans require and need, right?
So if you have a disabled veteran who has mobility challenges, transportation challenges, how is that person now to get that type of service that we were talking about?
They get somebody to drive them to Halifax to get the authorization to get the treatment that he requires. He's not going to be able to do that by telephone. He's going to get on the phone. He's going to say, "This is Joe Blow, and my leg is bothering me, and I'm crippled up with it, and I need to see a caseworker. Do you have a caseworker, Mr. Joe Blow?" No, I haven't. Well, you'll have to come to Halifax to see us, because we don't send caseworkers out to people who don't have them, right? And there you go, he's gonna have to pay for everything himself, so that's that side of the coin.
You were saying 5 hours, it can be a 5-hour drive from someone who lives on the island to go to the office in Halifax. And we're here to talk about this province, but there were 6 other offices that were closed across the country.
Yes.
What distance do these other veterans have to travel?
Well, I can't speak to too many of them, but I certainly can speak to the one in Newfoundland. They closed that office in Corner Brook and moved it to St. John's. And the people who live in the Outports, in Labrador, they would have to travel all the way up the coast. And they're looking at maybe a 10-hour drive, you know. That's totally unacceptable.
Sometimes you'll see a government program change and say, we've taken the model that worked over here, over there. But this seems to be a model without parallel. It seems to be literally made up on the back of a napkin, as they would say.
Ever since they announced the closing, they've been flying by the seat of their pants. They didn't have a plan. I can assure you they didn't have a plan. They just said, hey, we'll close them down, you know, get rid of them. And then, of course, the uproar started. A fellow by the name of Ron Clarke, I think, from North Sydney.
Oh, crazy guy.
Said, yeah, crazy as me arse. He said, this ain't gonna happen, right? So anyway, without any consultation at all, they just started, this program, we'll do this, we'll do that, do the other thing. And none of it's working, of course. None of it is working. We, as veterans, need a one-on-one, face-to-face, and we can only get that with the PSAC members who looked after us.
I would assume veterans are like everybody else in society, that they're not all the same, that their wants and their needs are different. Our women and men from the Second World War would have different issues than the Korean War, that would have different issues from some peacekeeping missions, that would have different issues from Afghanistan. I always say they try the pantyhose effect, one size fits all. Is this one where this one size fits nobody?
In the old days, of course, Second World War vets would come home from overseas, and I know one in particular. I was 5 years old when he arrived on the train in Sydney Mines. A pile of people, he wasn't the only one, but there was a pile of people there to welcome them home and give them a big treat. And we went home with him, and we weren't there an hour and a half when we all had to get out of there in a hurry because he went berserk. Mm-hmm. And the reason he went berserk was because he had post-traumatic stress disorder, which was not known in those days. They used to call it shell shock and cracking eggs, I believe, but anyway. Yeah, so he went through his life with that. I mean, he got himself in more situations he'd shake a stick at because of it, but nobody realized it. Now they realize that these Afghan vets are coming home, and believe me, I'm in touch with quite a few of them, the ones with post-traumatic stress disorder. I have one fellow who went to Ottawa with me. I won't repeat his name, but he's not in very good shape at all. He lives out in the boonies. I guess off the main road, he's about 3 miles, and he just can't be around people, because of his problem. But there's a few more like that. Now me, I'm a little different. Me, I'm very emotional because of my post-traumatic stress disorder. And some of the triggers, I got through them here this morning. Yeah, I got through them, but sometimes it just, there's no stopping. I break up and say goodbye. Yeah.
When I was in Vietnam, the second day I was there, I met a Newfoundlander. He was a first sergeant with the American Forces. We got shooting the breeze, got together, and he said he'd be back tomorrow and he'd take me and show me around. So he picked me up the next day and took me off the base. We drove out the countryside. The road he took me on, there was a stack of bodies, Vietnamese, stacked up like cordwood, waiting to be taken away. that was not very nice to see. Well, we got past that. Anyway, he took me on the base, showed me around the base, and then took me to one of the hangars. And there in the hangar were body bags, thousands of body bags, just stacked, waiting to get back to the United States. That made one hell of an impression upon me, and I have to live with that. You know, I see that all the time. I live with it. I wake up at night, you know, in sweats. It's not easy. Not easy.
I've heard bits and pieces about your experience in Ottawa last month, but I'm wondering if you could maybe tell our committee a bit more about how you were received.
We were fortunate enough that Mr. Fantino was going to have a meeting with us. We didn't know that when we first went out, but we were happy and surprised that he was going to do it. So anyway, through all the security they have up there and all that good stuff, they took us down to this room where we were supposed to meet. Now, we also had another engagement at a certain time in Ottawa, I don't know. But anyway, if they got this time here, that you better be there at that time or it's not going to happen, right? So anyway, we were to have a news conference. That's why we went to Ottawa in the first place. And when we got into the room and Mr. Fantino wasn't there, two of his flunkies were there, Mr. O'Toole and Mr. Hahn. We were waiting and he wasn't coming, so I said to our lads, let's get out of here now and get upstairs. At that time, Mr. O'Toole started to say, well, can we do a little talking here? You know. So we started to do a little chatting, and what he had to say was right off the bat blaming the union for agitating the government, or agitating us, so we would get all fired up. God damn it, we didn't need them to get us agitated. You know, we were agitated before we went there because they closed the offices down. So anyway, there was another chap came in just as we were maybe a couple of minutes away from leaving. And oh boy, what an arrogant son of a so-and-so. You know, he came in, he sat down, and one of our members was answering a question from Mr. Goldie Hahn. And this other chap says, well, now, listen, my name is so-and-so, and I got totally upset, and you know me. I said, who in the hell are you? And shut your mouth. We'll talk to you when we're finished talking to this fella. Mind your own business. Well, he never said another word. Never said another word. And I guess he was Mr. Fantino's right-hand man. Tough. But anyway, so Fantino didn't show up. We had to get the hell out of there and get upstairs where they were going to do the news conference. They shuffled us into this little room just to keep us there for a few minutes until the proper time, right? And we had about 4 minutes. And Mr. Fantino showed up. And all hell broke loose. I want to know why he didn't show. One of our people accused him of setting it up anyway, setting it up that way. Fantino got upset, and we got upset, and then he used the old cliche, well, you know, we're still going to look after cutting your grass and snow blowing. Well, he got a reaction from all of us on that. We all said, hey, shut, this is not what we want. We're here to close into the offices. So anyway, one fellow said it was bullshit, and the other fellow said, I forget what he said, it was comical anyway. But anyway, Fantino disappeared, and then we had our conference.
What's happening to democracy that we're seeing at the federal level, it's concerning me, and I'd like to hear from someone who fought for that democracy about your concerns.
It's the old line, you know, you don't toe the line, you're out. So these fellows want their jobs, so I guess they follow the coattails of the Prime Minister and do what he asks of them. Well, believe me, I'm sure that some of them are not going to be able to follow his coattails come election 2015. We will really have democracy working then, believe me.
The veterans from the Second World War, which I'm one of them, would have great difficulty going to Halifax. I'm 93 years old. Most of my colleagues in that particular war couldn't make it here today. Now, if somebody can tell me how in the hell they could make it to Halifax, then I'd love to really reason this out with the Minister Fantino. What we're asking for is to maintain what we've had. We had a good operating here office for the people, and for those veterans, God bless them, they had problems, and the problems should be dealt with, and it should be dealt with in a position where they can go to the people face to face and talk to them as they've done in the past.
I don't know if anybody knows, but our disability applications are 18 pages long. Our quality of life applications 4 pages long. Our doctor's part of it is 6 pages long. It's 28 pages. We have to do in 60 days. With most veterans, we haven't got just one condition. You have multiple conditions.
Yes.
Right. So with each condition comes a pensionable act. For each disability, you have 28 pages. So if you have massive migraines, there's a page. If eye loss, there's a page. Stomach bowel problems, there's a page. If broken bones, there's a page. PTSD, there's another one. And so each condition is 28 pages long.
So it took you 9 years from start to finish to get it.
And I'm still not finished. Once you fill all them papers out, you send them in, and you wait for your word to see what happens. Usually your first answer is no, and then you have to go through your appeal system, which takes months and months and months. And then after all this, DVA still has a doctor, which you have to see, and then she or he has the last input on your DVA status, and that's where your no comes in. That's where all your appeals come in. I haven't got a case manager no more. My case manager is taken away from me. So now, if I have a problem, I have to call 911, go to the hospital, or see my doctor if or when I can see her. It takes usually 2 or 3 weeks just to get an appointment with my own doctor.
Rage and frustration are 2 of the key components of PTSD. So as soon as they pick up a phone and try and get dial this 1-800 number and they get an automated system, they're going to rip the phone out of the wall. They're not going to call back. So they're going to turn to whatever it is that they can deal with to help it, alcohol, drugs, whatever, and it's just going to be downhill, all downhill.
When I first came out, there was no DVA offices in Sydney. I had to travel to Halifax. At that time, you didn't get unemployment insurance when you get out of the military. I had no income whatsoever and was a married man with 2 children. And if they wanted to see me in Halifax, it was entirely up to me to get there. When I would get there or how I would get there, I've seen me go hitchhiking. I've seen times I would arrive in Halifax too late for my appointment at Camp Hill, have to go down and sleep in the railroad station. And I've done that. This is where I see this going back to.
When I went to Veterans Affairs in Sydney, unbelievable. The professionalism, the compassion they had. I can expand on it all day. We're not going to have that anymore. But that's we, as veterans, need. We have to get you people in your support. And please take off your political coats and work together on this. Forget the party line. Think of the veterans.